The guerrilla war in Sogdia, led by the elusive Spitamenes, forced Alexander to confront not only mobile enemy horsemen, but also seemingly impregnable mountain strongholds, where Sogdian chieftains and their followers sought refuge. The sieges of the Sogdian Rock and the Rock of Chorienes in 328–327 BCE were legendary displays of Macedonian audacity, engineering skill, and Alexander's unyielding refusal to accept any obstacle as insurmountable. These victories were crucial in breaking the back of the Sogdian resistance, even as the main Sogdian revolt under Spitamenes raged across the plains and steppes. Numerous local chieftains and their families had retreated to formidable mountain fortresses, believing themselves safe from Alexander's reach. These natural strongholds, often perched atop sheer, isolated rock pinnacles, presented unique siege challenges. To such sieges stand out for their daring and Alexander's characteristic refusal to be daunted. The capture of the Sogdian Rock and, shortly thereafter, the Rock of Chorienes. The first of these, the Sogdian Rock, occurred in the spring of 328 BCE, or possibly early 327 BCE, chronologies vary. This fortress was a massive, isolated outcrop of rock with precipitous cliffs on all sides, accessible only by a single, narrow, and easily defended path. It was well stocked with provisions and water, capable of withstanding a lengthy blockade. A large number of Sogdian notables had taken refuge there, including, most significantly, the family of Oxyatis, a powerful Bactrian or Sogdian nobleman who had initially supported Bessus but was now a key figure in the ongoing resistance. The defenders, confident in their impregnable position, reportedly taunted the Macedonians from above when Alexander demanded their surrender. They jeeringly told him that he would need soldiers with wings to capture their fortress. This defiant challenge, coupled with the strategic necessity of reducing such rebel strongholds, galvanized Alexander. He was determined to prove that no place was beyond his reach. He called for volunteers from his army who had experience in rock climbing, perhaps from sieges in mountainous regions of Greece, or from hunting in Macedon. He offered substantial rewards for the first men to reach the summit, with incrementally larger prizes for those who followed, and a particularly large sum for the very first man. Around 300 Macedonians, skilled in scaling cliffs and driven by the promise of reward and glory, came forward. Under the cover of a dark and stormy night, these picked men began their perilous ascent. They used iron tent pegs, driven into cracks in the rock face, or into frozen snow and ice, and strong flaxen ropes, to inch their way up the sheerest, least guarded side of the fortress, a side the defenders considered utterly impassable. The climb was incredibly dangerous. Some 30 men reportedly fell to their deaths in the darkness. However, by dawn, the surviving climbers had reached the summit, undetected by the Sogdians below, who were focused on the main, accessible path where they expected Alexander's assault. As morning broke, Alexander sent a herald to once again demand the surrender of the fortress, pointing out his winged soldiers now arrayed on the summit above them. The Sogdian defenders, looking up and seeing the Macedonians miraculously positioned on the heights they believed unassailable, were utterly astonished and demoralized. Their confidence shattered, believing the feat could only have been accomplished with divine aid. They lost all will to resist and promptly surrendered. It was among the captives taken at the Sogdian Rock that Alexander first encountered Roxana, the daughter of Oxyatis. Ancient historians describe her as exceptionally beautiful, perhaps the most beautiful woman in Asia after Darius's wife, Stotera. Alexander was reportedly captivated by her at first sight. His subsequent marriage to Roxana, a subject for a later episode, would be a significant political act. aimed at reconciliation with the Iranian nobility and the pacification of the region. Oxyates himself, upon hearing of Alexander's unexpectedly chivalrous treatment of his family, and perhaps seeing the futility of further resistance, soon submitted to Alexander and was treated with honor. Shortly after the fall of the Sogdian Rock, Alexander faced a similar challenge at another mountain stronghold. The Rock of Chorienes, also known sometimes as the Rock of Spitamenes, though some scholars believe these were separate fortresses. This fortress, commanded by a Sogdian noble named Chorienes or Spitamenes, was even more formidable than the Sogdian Rock. It was higher, more precipitous, and surrounded by a deep ravine or chasm, making any direct approach with siege engines impossible. It was also extremely well provisioned, reportedly holding out supplies for 2 years. Alexander, arriving before this seemingly impregnable fortress, again refused to be deterred. He first attempted to negotiate, sending Oxyates, now his ally, to persuade Chorienes to surrender. Chorienes, trusting in his strongholds' natural defenses, refused. Alexander then embarked on another incredible feat of military engineering and determination. He ordered his soldiers to fell the tall pine trees growing in the area and to construct a massive series of timber causeways or ramps across the ravine, gradually building up a pathway towards the fortress. This was painstaking and dangerous work, carried out under a constant barrage of missiles from the defenders. The Macedonians built protective screens and employed their catapults to provide covering fire. As the siege works advanced, day and night, getting ever closer to the fortress walls, despite the defenders' efforts to burn them or roll down boulders, Chorienes' confidence began to waver. Seeing the relentless progress of Alexander's engineering and the unshakable determination of the Macedonians, and perhaps influenced by the example of the Sogdian Rock and Oxyates' counsel, Chorienes eventually decided to negotiate. He sent envoys to Alexander. Alexander, keen to avoid further casualties and delays if possible, agreed to parley. Chorienes, impressed by Alexander's magnanimity in allowing him safe passage to discuss terms, and perhaps also by the sheer audacity of the Macedonian siege efforts, finally agreed to surrender the fortress. Alexander, in turn, treated Chorienes honorably, confirming him in his position of local authority under Macedonian oversight, a move designed to encourage other local leaders to submit. The successful sieges of the Sogdian Rock and the Rock of Chorienes were critical turning points in the pacification of Sogdia. They demonstrated in the most dramatic fashion that no natural obstacle or fortified position was beyond Alexander's ability to overcome. These victories broke the morale of many remaining rebels, convincing them of the futility of further resistance. They also showcased the incredible skill, endurance, and daring of the Macedonian soldiers, particularly their engineers and rock climbers. For Alexander, these were not just military triumphs, they were triumphs of will, reinforcing his image as a leader favored by the gods and destined for unparalleled success. With these key strongholds subdued, and with Spitamenes' main field forces increasingly harried, the end of the long and brutal Sogdian War was finally drawing nearer.